Hello everyone and welcome back to the Throwdown the Mountain presented by Discraft and Sun King Discs. Terry Miller along with Simon Lizotte here for round number 1. We're moving into hole number 10 onto the back half of the course. Simon, you claim that the longer, tougher holes are back here. I'd say that starts with hole 10.
Yes. Hole 10, surprisingly only the fourth most difficult hole. I would have put this probably at the number 1 spot. Yeah, guys, everyone, welcome back. We are still out here. Everyone's within 1 stroke of each other, attacking the back 9 of this crazy course with crazy elevation and a lot of tight fairways. And this hole averages almost half a stroke over par. It's one of the tightest and longest par 3s on the course. And here it's all about staying in the fairway, because if you don't, getting a par is going to be very tricky.
Dickerson opens up a little low, just trying to avoid the canopy. It sounded like you kind of hit a late tree there, possibly kicking you hard left.
Yeah, there's like 3 or 4 trees kind of guiding along the middle of the fairway. You kind of can decide if you want to go left or right of them. We all choose the right gap, kind of lines up for a righty better. And you can just see how we are struggling out here, and it doesn't look that hard when you like see it on camera, but when you're standing on that hole, you're like, whoa, this is not easy.
It is not at all, and JohnE McCray is fighting down that right side. Another rare forehand by McCray. That's the second forehand here on the round. And Dickerson from way down on that bottom left side, and that's a really solid approach to even give himself a look at a putt.
Yeah, Dickerson was tucked with hard. It was hard for him to find room for his arm to swing, so I was really impressed with that, because usually you like throw it way too gentle if you're worried about you smashing your hand into a tree. And
you're not loving this lie either, are you?
yeah, I mean, I arguably had like the best tee shot and kind of got into a spot where I couldn't even throw the disc. I had to choose to throw a sidearm roller, and I chose a putter because I was hoping it would stay straighter for a bit longer. And it goes right up the hill, and I kind of needed it just to stop right there, which is really kind of hard to do. So it bailed out left, which wasn't the worst case scenario, so I was not happy. I was not mad about that.
Yeah, and for me to be able to even try and find the basket is tough enough, and I can't imagine what you had to do to get the disc up there. So McCray still working from that right side. This is Dickerson with what most would call a death putt. The hill right behind him, and he just squeaks it in. But a par's a par.
Yeah, that was a great scramble par save, which after watching Chris doing that, I was really wanting to match that.
You at all nervous? You quickly run up there to retrieve it. All nervous about the hill behind you?
No.
No, okay.
No, if it's a par putt, I don't think that ever crossed my mind. It's all about just make it. You gotta make it. And yeah, this hole only had 4% birdies. So
yeah,
seeing a 2 on this hole is a rare occasion.
It really is, and I'll say this is an absolute bonus birdie, as I've seen it played many times throughout the years, and I'm always impressed by anyone that gives themselves a look at it. So 3 pars and the bogey by McCray, and a new tee here on hole 11.
Yeah, this is my first year here, so I never got to play the old tee, which I looked at though, which looked a lot easier, a lot friendlier, a lot more my style. But here we are, shooting through a pretty tight gap, left to right curving fairway, kind of going into the open and then back into the woods. One of the easiest holes, actually the easiest hole as I check right now. It is averaging almost 0.2 under par, 37% birdie rate, and all you gotta do is keep the disc straight for at least, I'd say, 80 feet. If you hit that first 80-foot gap, you are going to be okay.
Oh, okay, so at 79 feet, that's not exactly where you want to throw.
No, that was very terrible execution of my plans.
And Calvin just smashes one through there. Now, there's almost a running joke that Barnett wanted to change where this tee was because Calvin had eagled this in the past. And Calvin's putting himself way up there as McCray keeps this one low and right up the middle, which is exactly what you need to do. Meanwhile, you're like a mountain goat up there. What are you doing?
Yeah, it's hard to tell on the camera angle, but I am standing on the side of a cliff. Somehow trying to get my D-line FD to flip over and roll up there to give me possibly even a putt for birdie, but that was well short, and I'm going to have to settle for par.
Yeah, best at this rate, and making it look very easy with Chris Dickerson taking the little Anheuser. JohnE McCray has a very similar look. He just needs to get this out and around. You see the wind kind of blowing on his shirt a little bit. And that was an unforced error by McCray. And as he mentioned something to Jen, I believe, that he was even kind of surprised himself that he made such a easy mistake there.
Well, yeah, Johnny just came from 2 bogeys in a row, so I wouldn't be surprised if he was thinking about running that. And if you try to run shots like that, it's easier to make unforced errors.
Trying to still take the birdie.
Yeah, I gave that one a look. Of course, if you get a chance at running for birdie, then most pro players will probably take it. And Calvin, this drive is so much better than you could ever explain how good it was. Getting a putt from outside circle 1 is it's so hard to do. Like, his drive was almost as perfect as you could ever throw it.
Ready to show Barnett it doesn't matter what tee you put him on, he can still eagle. And McCray doing some work, but still walking away with it birdie here.
Yeah, I think this was one of the key putts for him this round, is after the 2 bogeys and that mistake on that upshot is to get back in the zone and make like a 25 solid footer right there for birdie to get back on track. And Calvin and Chris have complete tap-in birdies. And yeah, I'm a little frustrated here. This was one of the holes I was pretty confident in getting, and I lost a stroke to the card. I was trying to get out of the way for
yeah,
you here, and you chose to follow me.
We're moving on, excuse me, hole 12. And this is one of the tighter gaps we find on the course, isn't it, at just 315 feet?
Yeah, the first time I saw this hole, I was a bit disappointed because there's so much great land on this property, and then you kind of chose to make this weird kind of dinker hole through the woods with no real gap, like the best drive you can kind of do. Unless you get lucky and hit a gap that is 2 feet wide, but is like just to get at circle's edge and make like a 30-footer. I mean, it's not the worst hole, but one of my least favorite holes on the course. It plays just barely over par, and most players will throw a sidearm. Overstable disc, you want to punch it straight, and then it's kind of a prey from there. Just hope to get a skip or hit some kind of gap through the trees and get a putt for 2.
I think there's a lot of different angles as to where the tee can be on this hole. And so maybe that's some feedback for Mike that he could adjust and see what makes the most sense. It looked clean out of your hand, but that was a pretty solid tree kick.
Yeah. The one thing with wooded holes that always bother me is that an almost good shot is the worst you can do. Like, if I would have thrown a worse tee shot, I would have been in a way better spot, because now I got the worst kick and was tucked in like thorns.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, as you're saying, a little unbelievable there. You were just in a
And
bad
this again,
position.
I'm like, I can't throw backhand with that tree, and that small little tree right there is obstructing my line. So I was complaining in my head a lot, and that was also not a good shot. I'm inside the circle there, like 20 feet, but on the wrong side of the basket.
Dickerson's not quite pin high, but he is at least 100, maybe 125 feet left of the pin. And he's doing a little bit of work to punch through that gap. Meanwhile, McCray's looking at a long birdie attempt.
Yeah, Johnny played this whole kind of, I think that's his game plan, just throw it straight down there and then try and make a 60-footer. No one really That's an 8% birdie rate on this hole, so you don't really lose much by getting a 3. Calvin with a great scramble 3 there after a pretty poor tee shot. I was very jealous of that 3.
Now you're doing a little bit of work. Wow, you don't have much from that angle, and I'm probably not even doing it justice at this moment.
No, of course, that looked like a very poor effort, but there was nothing. Like, if I would have made that, it would have been complete luck.
Wow, so you're going to walk away with the...
Double bogey 5, which...
On one of the shorter holes, too. That's...
Yeah, looking at the
not what you
stats, I
expect.
think that was the only double bogey on that hole. Rightfully so. That was heartbreaking a bit. But, you know, it could be worse.
Hole 13, a par 5, 870 feet with this ledge in the way. What are you trying to do? Where are you trying to land off this tee shot?
So this is one of the easiest hole, stats-wise. Doesn't really feel that easy. I mean, it could technically play as a par 4 if you have like a really, really high-end pro field. But yeah, for a B tier, I think this should absolutely be a par 5. And it is a blasting hyzer. Again, you have to hit the initial gap. This course is very drive heavy. Like, the drive is the most important part of your game here, because most courses it's the putt, but here, if you're out of position, you will be struggling all day and will not have a great time. So yeah, throwing overstable, most players will probably choose a high-speed driver or a fairway driver is enough to get yourself into position. Depends if you're playing this for eagle or birdie. I will totally play this hole for eagle after especially that double bogey. And I think all of us on this card have, at least in the back of our heads, that this is an eagle chance.
Clean, and looks like an adjustment from all the previous throws. McCray is pinched up here in the sawgrass, which is a tough run up, and he makes the most of it. That's a pretty solid shot from where he was.
Yeah, I think it's the best shot he could have almost possibly thrown from there.
And Dickerson was no more than a foot or two from him in the sawgrass, and Dickerson maybe tucked in there a little bit more. So he's got to go with a standstill and to try and generate power, especially enough for this roller, which actually, you know, cuts to the left. I don't quite see it after it hit the ground, but it cuts off to the left. Really tough spot to be, but you're wide open.
Yeah, I was in the absolute perfect spot off the drive. I couldn't have placed it with my hand any better, really. And I just didn't quite... I'm throwing a D-line FD, which is so flippy, and I haven't been throwing it too much. But I thought at least if I make sure to turn it over, which I somehow didn't, I'll get a look for eagle. But I put it on the other side of the mountain, where I've never been. So at this point, I have no idea what my next shot's going to even look like.
And I struggled trying to keep Heimburg's in frame. His also finishes off to that left side. And this is probably 250 feet, maybe?
Yeah,
Maybe
he made
200?
that shot look extremely silly and easy, which it was not. He hit a tiny gap and absolutely piered it.
And I apologize. Dickerson's actually went off to the right side fairway where Heimburg's was on the left. And McCray's also in really good position after that solid approach. And there again, he's just a little bit frustrated with himself. Now you're at least pin high, but...
Yeah, I'm kind of angry at myself there. I needed like an extra inch or two to get around that little brush. And I was so annoyed at my game at this point. I couldn't believe I didn't at least...
from that drive. That's hard to do.
kind of sarcastically applauding my game. Yeah, getting a 5 from my tee shot is almost sad.
I'm not going to say I could have possibly gotten up and down for the birdie from your lie, but
Yeah,
maybe.
you would have easily.
Anyway, McCray does make a really good putt, though. So even though he was a little errant on the approach, his putt is good. And Chris has about the same distance, maybe a little bit shorter. As you can see, he's kind of got some goofy footing there. But if you're putting money on anyone's putter, I think Chris Dickerson's the place to start.
Yeah, and I just saw in the stats there was not a single eagle on this hole, which is a bit surprising to me. So I hope we can change that today.
Heimburg with the easy drop-in birdie. Heading right to another par 5, back-to-back, thanks to Charlie Widboom, along with Dwayne Reeder. Over 1,000 feet, Simon.
This hole is maybe my favorite hole on the course. It just looks amazing from the tee. You're overlooking the entire hole. You can see the basket over 1,000 feet away, so it just looks amazing. The fairway is probably around 60 feet wide almost the whole time, maybe 50, and you're throwing pretty hard downhill. So all this hole is try to keep it in the fairway to give yourself a chance to play safe. The biggest trouble on this hole is probably the second shot, which you can't really see from this angle, but after the big brush on the right, there kind of is a little canyon and a cliff where it falls off, and it's all OB on the right side. So we're all just trying to keep it in the fairway here. We're not really giving it any height to do any crazy skips. We're all keeping it super low.
Yeah, you really want to keep the nose of the disc down, is what I tell a lot of people when you're throwing down a hill, is you want to keep the nose down, because if you throw it dead flat, it's just going to hyzer off to that left side. So throwing it nose down is the way to go. How much power are you putting on that? Is that 80%, 90%, 60%? How much power are you putting on that tee shot?
It's definitely 10% more since I was playing the last couple holes so poorly. Yeah, that's probably a good solid 85, 90%.
And Heimburg's in great position, but just too much power. He's throwing that uphill, and then he finds that spot you were talking about. There's actually OB, it drops off. There's a little bit of a hillside there. It's all marked with OB paint, and unfortunately, that's exactly where he found himself.
Yeah, probably Chris got a bit scared there after watching Calvin throw way right. So he didn't even turn that over at all, and he got a good break there by dropping right into the fairway.
I'm not going to lie, I was kind of cheering for maybe an albatross at this point. If there's one hole that sets up for an albatross for you, it's this one.
It is, though, still, it's conceivingly far, that second shot, because it's uphill, and it's still another probably 500 feet you got to smash it up there. So I was really happy with my second shot, leaving me a chance for eagle. And Johnny just putting himself in circle too, also looking at an eagle.
Some textbook throws by both you and McCray. Chris still just trying to get up and down. I mean, he's looking at a birdie if he can do just that, and I think he's executed that well. So you see there's an orange painted line thanks to so much of the staff out here, and Calvin gets to take it a meter off of that, and he goes just a bit deep, it looks like. And it's really deceiving because you can't tell from this angle that this is a hillside that's directly behind this basket. Oh.
Yeah, I was...
No eagle for you.
No, I was struggling mentally and physically.
Wow, and there's a rarity in itself. Chris Dickerson missing a putt.
Yeah, I think Chris was probably the most surprised by his error there.
So JohnE McCray, after a long eagle look, comes back for the birdie. You can see all the sawgrass and brush that's been cut out from down there, making this green even possible, so to speak. That's all new this year. This is a new placement. You still walk away with a birdie.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, at this point, I'm just kind of trying to save that round. It kind of already felt like I screwed it up. So, Yeah, that was a good putt to make anyway.
Scores are still pretty tight. You're a little bit off the pace, but overall, scores are pretty tight here for the group. I'm going to take a look at hole 15. It doesn't, this is not easy.
Yeah, oh, this is only the second most difficult hole. I would have guessed this one was the number one if hole 10 wasn't.
You need to land at this spot where we're kind of pausing. Jonathan knew that exactly. That's where you need to land on your tee shot, is right at that bend.
Yeah, this hole plays almost a stroke over par. It's 640 feet, so it's one of the longest par, maybe the longest par 4 on the course. And this tee shot is a flex shot, so you want to throw it overstable or stable distance driver, just like Johnny did there. He threw the absolute textbook shot and make it around these pine trees on the left.
I can't emphasize enough how perfect McCray's shot was. And yours looks to be about the same, just a little short of it, but you have to get around that bend, otherwise you may exhaust a stroke just trying to get around the corner.
Yeah, Chris made the one mistake it's better to make than not turning it enough. He turned it a bit too much, and he actually got a good kick there again from the tree, which pushed him right back to the fairway.
And Heimburg doesn't get over on his, as you were just mentioning, and that's really the worst possible place to be on this hole, because he hasn't quite made it to the clearing, and he's going to fight through and just barely get to the edge there. And he still has work to do to try and get up and down to save the par. Meanwhile, Dickerson, although not quite as much distance as you guys, he's got a really good angle at this. But there's new OB and a new pin placement here if you've watched in the past. So that actually just leaks out into the OB no more than 15 feet from the pin.
Oh, I got a kick there from the tree. I never saw that in person. But yeah, that was a great kick. So I got a good break there. And Calvin is... You can't see the basket, can you? I can't.
No, you can't. It's if I were Calvin's height, thanks for reminding me. If I were Calvin's height, we could have seen it.
So where Johnny threw it, that's where the basket is.
Yeah.
Spoiler.
So Calvin's still working here. This is just to save the par. All right, all right.
Snuck it in top tie. That was a great par save from where he was.
Does that catch make up for the non-catch we saw back on hole 4?
No, I wouldn't say that. You can't make up for a spit out.
Okay.
Ugh, that was frustrating too.
Just a foot or two inside Calvin's and not able to convert. So even though Dickerson went OB right there, he's going to walk away with a par. And McCray, I mean, yeah. If you want to know how to play hole 15, just watch what JohnE McCray did here, because it was textbook drive, equally as good approach, and a tap in as we move on to the blind hole 16. Just 250 feet, little gap to hit. This should be one of the easier holes on the course.
Yeah, it is 14th most difficult, which means 4th easiest, or 5th easiest, I believe. It barely plays under par, though. It's a tricky little shot. I was practicing with Paul Macbeth, who chose to throw sidearm on this hole, kind of to gauge the distance better, because it's a blind shot. You're throwing over this hill. It's way more uphill again than it looks, and then it drops off right behind that ledge there, where you just kind of lose the disc. And Johnny throws a putter, which I think is a pretty good play. I'm choosing a mid-range, my flippiest mid-range. And I get extremely lucky in this case, where I go straight through that gap right at that tree. Yeah, I was kind of doubting my whole existence at this point. So I don't know what happened there.
Meanwhile, Dickerson takes the, we'll say, more traditional route, finding that huge gap, the one you avoided. And those all look to be pretty good shots. And right now, we're pushing 6:15, 6:30-ish.
Yeah, the last hole there, you could see the sun was going down, and that was one of our main worries the entire round, if we were able to finish, because our tee time was 3:36, and the last card went out at 4:12, which is the latest tee time I've ever heard of. and the sun sets at like 7:30-ish. So yeah, on this course was this field of players, we were worried that we might have to finish in the dark, which has happened here in the past.
It has, if you've seen some previous videos, but you guys are making very quick, easy work of 16. That keeps things moving before the sunset. 4 birdies, as expected. Hole 17, not quite as easy, 380 feet.
Okay, now as I check the stats, oh, this is right in the middle, the 9th most difficult hole, averaging only a couple strokes, 0.15 over par. Kind of surprising, the whole left side is out of bounds, and the whole fairway also slopes slightly right to left, so everything trickles down to the out of bounds. Pretty tight gap to hit. This is right between mid-range and fairway driver for me, and I think Johnny's throwing a mid-range. You know what disc that was?
I don't,
I can only make a disc just for me.
but as he walked away there, he said something about making a disc just for him. So I do want to investigate as to exactly what that was, because he threw it pretty well, just a little too much turn to it. And you didn't exactly hit your line, but if you're going to miss, you need to miss to the right. Because
Yeah,
as you
we all
said, that's
know
OB
that.
on the left side.
Yeah, that's a great shot, but even that is still probably around 50 feet short. So pushing this all the way to the basket is extremely difficult. I don't think there were many birdies on this hole. 12% of the field got this hole. That's more than I expected.
Yeah, this hole has continued to get a little longer throughout the years, and with that OB on that left side, big numbers can creep in. And a little frame of reference, the last par 5 is what parallels this. So we're up on a shelf, and the par 5 parallels this, going the opposite direction, as Dickerson just barely comes out of the left side.
Yeah, I thought he made that when he let go. It looked really good and just barely trickled out.
And of course, oh, yeah, he gives a little too much. Of course, I want to thank UDisc along with the PDGA and everyone else involved here as we're getting to the end of hole number 17 and wrapping up this first round. And McCray going to pull himself right into things. He's going to pull out in front of everyone, actually, with that 8 under as you guys are through 17 holes.
Yeah, great birdie by Johnny on this hole, one of 12% of the field. So I'm not too disappointed. I'm happy to get the round over with as soon as possible and trying to regroup and shoot hot for round 2. But yeah, Calvin, Chris, and Johnny are still in the hunt.
The beautiful finishing hole number 18, throwing off of this top shelf. Mike brought it in, made it a little bit tighter. There's actually an OB on the left side, but then we're playing to the traditional basket we've seen in years past. The last couple times this hole has been played, there's been a new pin position over on the left side shelf, but this time he's brought it back to where we're used to seeing it, and a little bit of danger.
A little bit.
Okay, there's a lot of danger here.
Yeah, this is kind of course, the signature hole of this course. It is why this course is called Throw Down the Mountain, because that's what we're doing here. It is extremely high in elevation change. We're throwing way downhill, and then the upshot is back way uphill. And this is the shot kind of Paul told me to throw in practice, just an overstable sidearm. And the more right that you finish, kind of the closer you get to the cliff where the basket is on. Chris choosing a putter here, and this hole is the most difficult hole on the course. We waited all the way to the last hole, which plays over a stroke over par. So
5.01, so really crazy how tough this hole actually plays for everyone. All 4 of you guys are in bounds, which is key here, of course, off the tee. Otherwise you go to a drop zone. And Chris Dickerson's going to approach first.
yeah, this is probably one of the most unique and most difficult par 4s that I think I've ever played. That was, again, way better than it looks on camera.
making it look easy. McCray's going to give it a little bit of a turnover. He's going to get a full flex out of this. And it just flexes too much. He's heading off to that left side. It's in bounds, and he'll have a wide open shot. So we see Mango Steve up there volunteering after I'm sure he played earlier in the day. So thank you, Steve. You know, you're one of the furthest throwers in the game, and you came up short there.
Yeah, I don't know what was going through my mind. It should be so obvious. Too, like, you can't really throw this too long. Like, you blast one up there, a putter or a mid-range if you're in that spot where I was, and then you can't really throw it too long. So leaving it short, there's not really any excuse for it. So it was just kind of the sad ending to my day, having to settle for.
You know you're ready to close things out there and make adjustments for round 2. McCray's looking at a long birdie attempt, and as he's doing that,
he actually tickled the chain there. I heard it.
I again want to thank Sun King, Dwayne Reeder, Charlie Widboom, AJ and family, Dana Smith, Discraft, DGA, and Florida Cracker Kitchen. Thank you guys so much for all of the support as you're watching the Throne on the Mountain presented by Discraft. Simon, we've got just a couple of putts here. Thank you for joining me.
Rounds. You can see here, Johnny's going to tap in for par. Chris birdie, Calvin birdie, they all shot 8 under par, 56s, and I clean up my sweet bogey and finish at 3 under. So yeah, I felt not great personally, but all in all, we had great weather. It's a super sick, fun course, and Johnny's happy, so that makes me happy.
I'm the Disc Golf Guy, and that was my video blog. I'm here with JohnE McCray. Johnny, one of the 3 8-unders in this opening round that we found on this card. Pretty solid start. How did it feel for you?
I played pretty good. I had some rough breaks, had a couple bogeys I definitely shouldn't take, and came back and played pretty good though. And so I'm pretty happy with it. This course is pretty demanding. If you get off the fairway, you might have to pitch out. So it's pretty challenging for even the top players. So I felt pretty good about how it went today.
And speaking of feeling good, we're back here in Florida, your home state, but also reunited with your wife back on the course. We've been missing her the last few weeks.
Yeah, she had to stay home when I flew out to Memorial in Texas. So it was good to have her back on the bag. So yeah.
What were her words of advice back on the bag for the day?
Stay calm.
Stay calm. All right. Well, this is JohnE McCray. He's one of the 3 8-unders. Appreciate you guys watching. Make sure you like and comment in the section below. We've got some action to give away, so we'll look forward to seeing you guys more tomorrow. Round 2 coming up on Saturday.
Thank you.
Thank you, buddy. Great work.
Right on.
Thanks.
Something just went off.
Oh, you just...